So this meditation technique I call the khaos meditation. I use a little play on spelling of kairos with there too, just a little Catholic school joke. So this one is all about the eyes. I found in my experience that, generally the more I soften, soften my body, soften my mind, soften my expectations, soften my insistence, generally the more peaceful I am, the more happy I am, the more present I am, the more receptive and resourceful I am in the moment. Generally, it's a better thing. And I'm finding that the eyes in particular, when I can soften the gaze, when I can really allow my eyes, instead of being kind of hard, shaky, twitching, as they often are, especially when I'm kind of lost in screen world, the more I can kind of just let the eyes relax, right? Let that gaze soften, let it gently broaden. It just generally goes along with a peace of mind and a sense of well-being, maybe more than any other part of the body in terms of what I've experienced. And I'll just note briefly, one thing you tend to see is if you look at folks who have done a lot of intense Buddhist practice, or people have seemed to have gone through an awakening or enlightenment experience, almost without fail, you notice a profound difference in the way their eyes look compared to, say, the average person's eyes. There tends to be a real serenity, a gentleness and ease in the eyes. It's as though the internal change they've undergone has led to their gaze naturally softening. And so I think this technique here is a way to kind of try to emulate that, both to try to get that internal state to kind of mirror what we're seeing in those folks who've kind of taken that step, and also just to cultivate in ourselves kind of a practice and a habit of allowing that gaze naturally to soften on its own. And so here's what this technique involves. We assume our meditative position, right? We can sit, we can lie down. This is one that's not good to do while you're walking because it involves closing the eyes. And first what we do is we surrender or relinquish control of the eyelids, right? So oftentimes we'll notice, or I'll certainly notice, I'm holding a lot of tension in my eyelids. I'm trying to kind of keep them at a certain opening or closing. I want to have them available, kind of under my control to manage, and all that energy and all that thought going into it just builds a lot of attention and accumulation there. So what we do is once we've gotten our meditative posture and we've breathed a little bit, we just let them go. We let the eyelids be. We don't shut them tight. We don't throw them fully open. We don't try to hold them in like a half lid. We just let the eyelids kind of just droop and be there naturally, right? We essentially soften our control over them, relinquish our control over them, and let them do what they want. Then once we've gotten that, we then go into the eyeballs themselves and we do the same thing, right? Again, throughout much of the day, I'm noticing a lot of tension in my eyes. I'm kind of like pushing my gaze this way and that. Instead of having kind of that nice broad open field where I can kind of drink in the environment, I've kind of, jabbing here and there with my eyesight to try to see what I want to see, scrolling a screen, something like that. A lot of tension, a lot of vibration in the eyes, a lot of heaviness in the eyes, a lot of fatigue in the eyes. This is an opportunity to relinquish that control, right? So what I essentially say to myself is, okay, let the eyes go, let the eyes be, right? So the lids have been let go, and now the eyes have been let go. And this may be a little creepy, but I'll kind of get a little close here. Right, so I'm doing my best not to control my eyelids and not to control the eyes themselves. And what I notice is when I'm stressed and I do this, there's a fluttering that goes on, right? To some degree in the lids, mostly in the eyeballs. And the key to this technique is accept yourself as you are and stick to the technique. So if you go to sit down and you go to do this, and it's like your eyelids are fluttering, almost like they're an REM, right? Or almost like kind of like when you see those characters in the Matrix and they're plugged in, their eyes are kind of twitching all here and there. Let it be, right? The eyes may have something that they want to move through. They may have something they're kind of working out. You think of it kind of like one of those old telephone lines, right? The cord, if it gets all twisted, you remember what we used to do with those? Right? You kind of let the cord, hold the cord, you let the phone dangle, and it just will kind of untwist itself. And it'll coil like this, and then it'll coil back, and then it'll coil back, but a little less. And then eventually it'll dangle free, having worked out all that tension that was built up from all those different times of twisting. The eyes are kind of the same way in my experience. When you let them go, they'll oftentimes flutter really quickly, and that may be kind of a weird or scary experience. Let it go. No harm with that. My personal belief is when we do that, what we're doing is there's actually kind of a wall here, right? And we've got information coming up from our body, could be thoughts, it could be wishes, could be information about the state of the body. And when there's tension in the eyes, I think we kind of trap it there. It acts like kind of a wall that keeps it down. I don't know if we're trying to kind of prevent information from getting to the brain or what, but I notice an accumulation. I'll even sometimes kind of feel it in my ears, like a tingling, almost like there's a water line that's built up to this point, but it won't go past there. And again, I think it's that tension that I'm holding in this area that kind of keeps a lid on things, and not for the better. So as I relax that, right, it's almost kind of like opening that lid for a vent. That steam, especially at the beginning, may come shooting up. Let it go, right? Let it be. Let that come shooting up and out, because it's trying to get up and out through here. It's trying to get into the brain, to let the brain get whatever information it wants, and then it just wants to be released, right? So relinquish eyelid control, relinquish eyeball control, and let whatever happens, happens, right? If you want to maintain kind of your focus in the meantime, you can kind of breathe in and out. Right? You can notice the breath, but then periodically always just return to this area of the eyes and the eyelids. And notice if you tried to reassume any control, right? Here's a hint. We're going to try to reassume control. This is what we do. We always go back habitually. It'll be mostly subconscious. But we're going to try to get those eyelids back. We're going to try to get those eyes back, right? To feel safety, to feel aware, to feel in control. When we notice that control coming back in, let it go again, right? Eyelids, let them go. Eyeball, let it go. If there's fluttering, if there's twitching, let it be. If the eyelids are dead still and the eyeballs are dead still, let it be. We're not trying to create a certain condition in the eyes or the eyelids. What we're trying to do is to practice the technique of letting go of control, letting go of tension, allowing them to be in their own natural state without our kind of control and our ego and our fear coming in and kind of acting like a puppet master with the strings and constantly controlling them, wearing them out. And in my experience, again, creating this kind of a lid where we block the free flow of energy. And what I encourage you to do is to notice after you're done, how do your eyes feel, right? How do your eyelids feel, right? And if after doing the meditation, you wait a minute or so and then you do it again, right? Is there any more or less fluttering than before? In my experience, once I've done kind of that initial release and the eyelids have kind of fluttered and the eyeballs have fluttered, when I go back later, there isn't as much fluttering, I think, because a lot of that tension has been let go, right? There's less steam accumulated under the pot. And that, to me, tends to coincide with more open thinking, clearer seeing. Things just seem steadier, softer, stiller. It's kind of a kinder and more open world instead of kind of this fast-paced, swirling world, you know, with a lot of unpredictability and things like that, which, again, I think is reflective when our eyelids and our eyes get too tired and too caught up in tension and fixation. So give it a shot, and I hope it works for you.